Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Triangulation is brought to you by Cashfly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Triangulation, episode 203, recorded Monday, June 8th, 2015. Ashlee Vance. Triangulation is brought to you by Blue Apron. Blue Apron will send you all the ingredients to cook fresh, delicious meals with simple step-by-step instructions right to your door. See what's on the menu this week and get your first 2 meals free by going to blueapron.com/twit. That's blueapron.com/twit. And by Credit Karma. With Credit Karma, you can find out your credit score, get tips and suggestions on managing your credit, and monitor your credit for free. Visit creditkarma.com, and don't forget to download the app. Just text TWIT to 89800 and get started right away. And by Personal Capital. With Personal Capital, you get award-winning financial tools, unbiased advice, and a transparent view of all your investments. Best of all, it's free. To sign up, go to personalcapital.com/triangulation. It's time for Triangulation, the show where we cover, talk to some of the most interesting people in technology. I always look forward to my Mondays because we always have so many great people in here. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Ashlee Vance here. He is author of a very exciting new book about probably one of the most exciting innovators of our time, Elon Musk. Ashlee, it's nice to see you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Read you for years in the New York Times. You're now at Bloomberg Businessweek. Is this your first book? I kept trying to remember.
This is my first book like this. I did kind of a historical guidebook to Silicon Valley, but this is my first sort of proper narrative kind of book.
Elon Musk, and I've got to read the subtitle because it's kind of interesting. Tesla, SpaceX, and I'm reading it sideways. And what is it?
The quest.
The quest for the fantastic future. Your Twitter cuts off the quest part. Your quest for the fantastic future. I think it's interesting you mentioned Tesla and Elon Musk in the same sentence. Why?
Well, I mean, Tesla, part of it was I just wanted everyone to realize Tesla and SpaceX go with this guy. I mean,
oh, you're not thinking of, I'm sorry, you're thinking about the car company Tesla.
Right.
I apologize. I thought you were talking about Nikolai Tesla. I was all excited. I was going to make some connection here. Of course, his company is Tesla. You understand this is the third show I've done today. I'm a little punchy. How did you pick Elon Musk as a subject?
Well, I kind of always been interested in companies that actually make things as opposed to, I don't know, I just never gravitated towards kind of
software, you mean?
Websites and consumer services. And so, I've covered like chip companies and all the hardware makers and things like that.
This guy's trying to change the world, though. This isn't...
Yeah, well, yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, especially, the last few years in the Valley, I mean, it's sort of getting harder and harder to find sort of these hardware makers. And then when I ran across Elon and I went to the Tesla factory in Silicon Valley, and then really when I went to the SpaceX factory in LA, I mean, you're right near the Los Angeles airport, and I guess I expected to see this company that was kind of had a few dozen people fiddling with one rocket, but it's like thousands of people almost mass producing rockets in the middle of LA, and I was like, this is what I want to do. And then when I talked to Elon, he was a much better interview than I think I had sort of pictured in my head, and so then...
So he cooperated.
He didn't initially. I'd done a cover story on him in Businessweek in 2012, and we had like a good rapport after that. I mean, Elon thought my story was accurate, which is usually sort of...
That's a good start anyway.
It was a decent start. And then, I went to him and I said, I'm thinking about doing a book. And he said, oh, lots of people have asked me, and I've turned them all down. And he said, I think I might want to do my own book. And then... I just kept going. I went back about a month later. I said, I've sold the book. Do you want to cooperate?
Too late.
Now?
It's going to happen.
Yeah. And then he said, no, I still don't want to cooperate. And then I spent about 18 months interviewing people. I got up to around like 200 people. And then Elon called me at my house and he said, look, you've talked to so many people. Well, yeah, he goes, either I really become because he hadn't been nasty, but he hadn't been getting in my way, and he was kind of like either...
Well, that's the other thing you can do, and sometimes does happen. They'll call friends and family, say, whatever you do, don't talk to that Vance guy.
So he basically called me at my house, and he said, look, this is going to go one of two ways at this point. Either I shut everything down, or I cooperate. And we had a dinner. We sort of hashed out our terms. At first, he he wanted to be able to read the book, and he wanted to put footnotes in it and things like that. I kind of go through this in the book, yeah. And
wait a minute. Now now Ashlee's talking about he got this wrong. Footnotes,
yeah,
like a response from Elon.
Right. So you know, on one hand, Elon has this kind of, he's got a pretty unique writing style. He can be funny. There were parts of me that for a moment were like, oh, this could be kind of,
in some ways, yeah.
And then you knew people would buy the book to sort of see what Elon says. On the other hand, he's quite verbose. He tends to like basic questions. He can go on for. I just knew the footnotes would be longer than the book, and I also thought it just might never get done. We'd be sitting there forever. And so I said no, and I thought he would. I really thought he would. It would be a deal breaker. But to his credit, I got like 5 minutes into my speech about why he should let me do this like a proper journalist, and he said okay. And then so for then about 8 or 9 months after that, I did interviews with him, and I got access to all the executives at SpaceX and Tesla.
Why do you think he's worth our time to study this guy?
Yeah, I guess it goes, you know, there's people who are like the Elon believers, and then there's sort of the skeptics camp, and there's plenty of people in between. I mean, I am not like an Elon fanboy as such. I am.
Did you start to become one a little bit as you read this stuff?
I mean, I'm not a fanboy in the sense that, you know, not in that sort of religious sense. I would not have done the book if I wasn't really into, like, if I thought SpaceX and Tesla were just jokes. And I mean, you know, I was genuinely interested.
He's doing something, yeah,
absolutely.
real,
and
genuine,
so you know, I think it's worth our time because even if you're in the anti-Elon camp or you think he gets too many subsidies, or something, like this guy is trying to do something. He's trying to do something on a scale that hardly anybody else is doing. He's taking more risk than just about everyone else is taking. And then kind of like where we started out in this day and age, I mean, it's just attractive to me to have someone take some of the Silicon Valley principles and apply it to something that isn't a new website or a new app. He's taking a lot of the stuff we've learned from the Valley into industries that don't know how to use software that well, don't know how to operate as quickly, and has really changed him. And it's fascinating. And then, you know, his life story is like as interesting as the companies. Yeah.
You also get the sense that here's a very courageous man, a man who's willing to risk it all, because there have been moments where he's come right to the edge of failure and looked it right straight in the eye and kept going. You also get the sense that he is trying to do something important, not just trying to make $1 million. He did that a long time ago.
Right.
He's trying to make a difference. And so you got to admire that. But let's I want to go back and start at the beginning.
Yep.
I want to find out where Elon came from. We'll talk about that in just a second. Our guest is Ashlee Vance. The new book is already a bestseller. Congratulations on the New York Times bestseller list. Elon Musk's Tesla, SpaceX, and the Quest for a Fantastic Future. And he really does have that Tony Stark quality on the cover of that book. Did he give you that picture? Or
he wouldn't take a photo for the book, but we did he got lucky on that one. I think that's a good shot.
That's a great shot, man. That is something you would aspire. In fact, you know, just as the quintessential Steve Jobs shot that everybody copies, I think you're going to see more and more guys with their arms folded in black T-shirts.
Yeah,
that's a great shot. We'll get back to Elon Musk in a second, but first I want to tell you about your kitchen, Blue Apron. Love Blue Apron. What a great idea. The Blue Apron's named after the blue apron that the apprentices at the world-famous Cordon Bleu cooking school in Paris, they put them in blue aprons to show that they're beginning their quest to become chefs. And I think it's a perfect name for Blue Apron. Look, we're all busy. We all work long days. The last thing you want to do is go to the grocery store and buy all the ingredients for a great meal and cook it and serve it. On the other hand, we can't just keep going to Jack in the Box every 5 minutes. We got to cook for ourselves. We got to make great meals. We got to learn how to do this. And Blue Apron makes this so easy because when you get home, you will find their Blue Apron refrigerated box full of fresh ingredients, nothing frozen. The best ingredients too, though, all locally produced, perfectly in season. Everything you need, including a step-by-step recipe card with beautifully printed pictures. Everything you need. Videos on the website if you have technique questions about slicing or dicing, and you're going to make an incredible meal. For less than $10 per meal, they're about 500 to 700 calories. They're fresh, they're delicious, and it's probably stuff that you wouldn't necessarily think of making. And I have to say, it's really increased my repertoire. That's one of the things that we're always looking for. You don't want to make the same spaghetti and meatballs every 5 days a week. Blue Apron will introduce you to new ideas, new cooking techniques, and once you've made this meal, you're going to be confident to do it again. Now, this is Jason. He's going to make, what are you making this time? Looks good. That looks fantastic, in
This
fact.
is the lamb and beef
Lamb and beef
shawarma.
shawarma.
Yeah.
How about arepas
really good.
de carne molida with avocado and pickled jalapeno, and savory ricotta and snow pea fritters? How about that? Every week they've got a new set of menus. In fact, you'll never get the same meal twice in a row. You'll impress. This is a great way to impress a date, or they have family plans. Impress your kids and spouse. In fact, the family plan's great because they have kid-friendly recipes, kid-friendly ingredients. So, sometimes kids are a little bit picky. But you don't have to go to the grocery store. You always have everything you want. And it's not too much. Like, you don't get a whole head of lettuce. You get just what you need, so there's never any waste from unused ingredients. Look at that. Jason, you're a cook. That looks
really
phenomenal.
We've made so many recipes from Blue Apron. This was one of the first ones that we made. And, I mean, every month we do it.
I'm such a fan.
Yeah. We go to their site. They have their recipes on the site as well.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you don't have to
just make them.
Get the box to do the
awesome.
recipes. You can just do it from the site. BlueApron.com/twit. Check out this week's menu. Your first 2 meals are free. How about that? I'm buying you dinner. First 2 meals free. BlueApron.com/twit. We love it. I love it, and I think you will too. Give it a try. Ashlee Vance is our guest. He's with Bloomberg Businessweek. He's written a book, the bestseller, New York Times bestseller. You can get it. By the way, get it from his website, so he gets a little extra. Ashlee, 2 E's, Vance.com on Elon Musk. So we were actually talking about Elon Musk, and I said he's Canadian, and people said, no, he's not Canadian. It's a little confusing. Where did Elon Musk come from?
Yeah, I go into this in more detail than I think anyone has before. I mean,
does he want to hide his origins, you think?
No. He was born in South Africa. Is the short of it. He is. One side of his family is American Canadian, and one side is English South African.
Part of the problem is his accent is completely unidentifiable. I guess it's South African.
It is South African, but it's kind of been diluted over the years. But I mean, I don't think he wants to. He definitely doesn't want to hide where he's from, but he's never been back to South Africa since he left when he was 17.
Interesting.
And he definitely identifies as an American. I mean, since he was a kid, he wanted to get to America. That might sound cliche, but it was the American dream. It was Silicon Valley. That's where it seems like people are doing things that I read about in the magazine. He had a computer when he was 12 and just knew he wanted to get to America. When he was 17, he actually ran away from home, more or less. His parents didn't want him to go, but his mother was a Canadian citizen.
So he had dual citizenship?
Well, he knew that he could get to North America. That was as close as he could get, first off. And so he left with about $100 in his pocket, and he goes to Canada, and he spends about a year backpacking. He tends gardens of some relatives. He works cleaning out boilers and chops wood, does all kind of odd jobs. Then he ends up at Queens College in Canada for a couple years, and then he goes to University of Pennsylvania in the U.S. and finishes.
He's really a self-made man.
I mean, he literally. So it's pretty funny. He comes with about $100.
That's amazing.
8 years later, he's made about $200 million. Then he loses it all, and then 8 years after that, he makes about $10 billion. So it comes and goes.
It's just an amazing story.
Yeah.
And you really wonder what makes a person like that. Was his family affluent?
So his grandfather deserves a book on his own. His grandfather on his mother's side, his name was Joshua Elon Haldeman. This is where Elon gets his name. He was a chiropractor in Canada who happened to have a plane, and the family became famous. They would fly all around Canada.
The flying chiropractor?
So there's a book called The Flying Haldemans, and it's the story of this family.
Wow.
So he's Canadian, he's a chiropractor, he's got a really successful practice, and then he was about in his mid-40s or early 50s, he decides, that's it, I'm going to go to Africa. I've always wanted to see Africa. Packs up the whole family.
This is in the 50s, maybe?
Yeah, this would be, exactly. It'd be about 1940s, 1950s.
So still apartheid in South Africa?
Oh, yeah. And the family lands in South Africa. He reassembles his Belanca, his single-engine plane. And
he doesn't fly there.
No.
He takes it, though.
Yeah, and the family...
Puts it on the boat.
The kids, Elon's mom and her brothers remember taking it apart and putting it back together again. And then... he goes up in the air, he's like, where am I going to live? And they go for a flight, and they fly over Pretoria, South Africa, which has these very purple, these jacaranda trees that it's sort of famous for. Yeah. And he says, that's where I'm going to live. Then they go on these crazy adventures. I mean, you can see this is where Elon gets a bit of his spirit from. He pretty much for every weekend or once a month, the family would go looking for the lost city of the Kalahari. It was this, and they would get in the plane and fly off in the bush.
This
and
is
go
a desert.
land. Yeah, it's crazy. And then one day, he and his wife win. They decide they're going to go on this South Africa to North Africa car race, and they get in the family station wagon, and they end up finishing first in this race. Yeah, because he could basically repair anything, and your car breaks down so many times on this journey. They were also the South African marksman champions, both the husband and wife.
So this is really an interesting family that he comes from.
Yeah.
And was his mother like that? I mean, she's the daughter of the flying Haldeman's.
Right. So she grows up with this spirit. She doesn't do quite the same sort of adventuring, but she's a model. She ends up becoming. I think she finished third in the Miss South Africa pageant, and then she's also studying. She was really into science. I mean, she was very, very bright and was studying science.
But it was his father that he ended up with when his parents split it.
Right.
He was about 9 or 10.
And his dad was an engineer and a very good engineer. Yeah. And so Elon grew up in a fairly affluent family. His parents divorced. Mm-hmm. His mother wasn't quite as well off. She was doing modeling and going to school. His father was well off and was a very successful engineer, but it was very hard on Elon. It was Elon chooses to live with his dad, which is kind of amazing because they have a very poor relationship today, and Elon's father, for example, has never been allowed to meet Elon's children. And
no kidding.
Yeah, so it's pretty severe.
How about the mom? Is she still around?
She is. She actually still models. You'll see she's in like Beyonce videos and billboards, and she has quite a successful modeling career, and she lives in L.A.
How? And he's in touch with her.
Yeah.
What a family.
Yeah.
So he gets a computer as a kid. He, in fact, when he was a kid, sold his program, right?
Right, yeah, this gets kind of, he did. He wrote some code for a pretty basic video game. It's got about 120 lines of code. When he was 12, I mean, no, not to knock it. I didn't do that when I was 12, but
it's not like, okay, he didn't write Microsoft Word. He wrote something called Blast Star.
Yeah, and it's a very basic, video game.
In BASIC, in Commodore VIC 20
but
BASIC.
He got paid for it. He got paid about $500 for that. So.
It shows a couple of things. First of all, obviously technical skill, but also an entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah.
He's thinking already at that age, at 12 years old, about making money.
Absolutely. He had a brother and a sister, and then he was also very close with his cousins, the Rive brothers, who have since gone on to found Solar City. So a very entrepreneurial group. And they tried to start an arcade when they were kids. They used to sell Easter eggs, door to door, and do these various things.
In fact, while he's in college, he buys a frat house.
That's right, at the University of Pennsylvania. These are some of my favorite stories. He's got this friend, Adeo Ressi, who's gone on to do the Founders Institute, and is quite this eccentric guy. Yeah. And I think he was more behind some of this than Elon, but Elon definitely got swept up in it. They bought this huge, dilapidated house at UPenn and throw, what were apparently like the biggest. They would black out the windows, put up neon lights and all that, and then charge people to come to the door. And Elon's mom, she was the money lady at one of these parties. She was telling me stories about it. Yeah.
So you did talk to her. Did you talk to his dad?
I emailed with his dad, and then his dad has such a fractured relationship with everyone in the family that it became this. Once Elon found out that I had reached out to his dad, it was sort of touching the third rail. Yeah, it was really
interesting.
Bad news.
Yeah, but his mom was pretty.
Yeah, I talked to her. I talked to his brother. I talked to his wife, his ex-wife, all his family.
So, what did he study in college? Science.
He did physics and business at UPenn. Yeah.
Okay. Went to Stanford to get a degree there, right?
He did, so while he was in UPenn, he would come to Silicon Valley in the summers, and he had a couple internships. One was at a video game company where Tony Fadell and some other guys that would go on to become very famous.
Such a small world, isn't it?
Yeah,
wow.
And then the other one was at this ultra capacitor startup that never really became much of anything, but he was kind of interested in energy and thought, so he thought he would go to Stanford and get a doctorate in physics and sort of develop this ultracapacitor technology, but he never, basically he enrolled and he never even showed up. It was sort of like 94, 95, and the internet's taking off, and he and Kimball, his brother, take this road trip from Penn.
So Kimball emigrated from South Africa as well?
Yeah, pretty much as soon as Elon left to Canada, the whole family goes. In fact, Elon's mom flew to Canada to get Elon or at least to
He's
check in with
17
him.
years old with $100 in his pocket.
And while he's gone, his younger sister sold the family's house and all of their possessions so that when the mom came back, they would have to all go to Canada.
What the heck? What? This sounds like you couldn't make this up.
No,
I mean, this sounds like a wonderful and yet eccentric family.
Like, because the Tony Stark thing, sort of a caricature stuff, but when you start digging into some of these pieces, it's like
going on. But that kind of also gives you freedom and freedom to do stuff that's unusual and clearly a lack of fear.
Yeah, they all seem to share that, which is, you know, so Kimmel and Elon take this road trip together, and they're sort of like, we have to do something with the internet. I mean, it sounds interesting, and they brainstorm, and they share this thing. Elon's Kimmel's the very affable, charismatic. He's tall and skinny, and Elon's more of the engineer, the brainy, sort of awkward guy, and they make this pair, and they start Zip2 together.
This was his first company.
And it's basically, you know, you could think of it as Google Maps meets Yelp before any of that exists.
It's like a city directory thing.
Yeah, and the idea was you're at Stanford and you need to find out where your closest pizza place is, and you type it in and then you get directions, and then...
This is the mid-90s. There was no way to do that, really. I mean, most people didn't even have a browser yet.
No,
this was very early, right?
Yeah, they had to take... This is 94, 95. You had to... The mapping stuff didn't exist. The directory stuff you used.
There was no MapQuest even then.
No. And then apparently, like, the legend is that Elon's mom is the one who invented that reverse direction. You know, that button you click to just flip the.
Yeah.
That was Elon's.
So you know how to get from here to there. Now how do I get from there to here?
Yeah.
You just push the button.
Right.
Elon's mom invented that. She should have patented it. She'd be doing all right now.
Yeah.
Although actually they did all right, because didn't they sell this company to Compaq?
They did very well. They ended up finding this weird niche where the newspapers had been slow to get online and hadn't made sort of directory software of their own, and so they would buy Zip2. It was meant originally to be kind of a consumer play. It turned into a business play. Elon still wanted to keep going and sort of see that consumer vision out, but the investors decided to sell. And they sell to Compaq for about $300 million, and Elon makes about 22.
Not bad.
Yeah.
How old is he at this time?
You know, he would have been
25, 26?
26.
He's mid-20s.
Right.
Okay, he's doing all right. Most of us would have gone then to Aruba and smoked our life away.
Yeah,
he did not.
No, he did. He bought a McLaren. He spent $1 million.
He bought a McLaren?
On that. Yeah,
He bought $1 million car. Look, you only got $12 million. He bought $1 million car.
Yeah.
He likes cars, obviously.
He loved cars. There's some pretty horrendous videos.
That sounds like something out of the TV show Silicon Valley. He bought a McLaren.
Actually, been watching Silicon Valley. And
there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah, I feel like.
So what did he do? He made videos of him racing this thing?
No, unfortunately, you know, CNN catches up with the newly minted .com millionaire as his McLaren's being delivered, and it's
oh dear,
it's not Elon's finest hour.
Is that online anywhere?
If
YouTube, maybe?
You do like CNN, McLaren, Musk, maybe you would think you'd find it. See,
this is early in that era, but unfortunately this stuff, yeah, here we go. Here it is. Elon Musk. This is probably the earliest video. Oh, I'm going to have to skip this ad. The earliest video of Elon Musk in existence. He's in his mid-20s, and it's a document. Oh, look how young he looks. Whoa. Do you have audio? Are you getting audio on that? Let me turn audio on.
His prize for paying.
Let's go back a little bit here. We got to see this.
It's 7 o'clock in the morning, and Elon Musk anxiously waits for his golden payoff.
His jacket's a little too big, and
he doesn't. His arms are lost in the sleeves.
That I just bought, which is called the McLaren F1.
It's $1 million for a car.
That's his first one.
It's decadent.
There are 62 McLarens in the world, and I will own one of them.
Back in '95, there weren't very many people on the internet.
Here we go.
This almost feels like a parody.
At all. Most people thought the internet was going to be a fad.
Not this South African entrepreneur. Musk sold his first computer program at the age of 12, and he hasn't.
He really needs to get a better jacket.
Wow, I can't believe it's actually here. It's pretty wild, man. Just 3 years
It's like he's
ago,
wearing his dad's clothes.
At the Y and sleeping on the office floor.
Yeah, this is Palo Alto.
Now, obviously, I've got a $1 million car and quite a
beautiful
few
wife.
Comforts. It's just a moment in my life.
Is it even street legal?
My values may have changed,
but I'm not.
It's got
conscious
doors
of
that go
where
this.
my values
Yeah,
have.
right, exactly.
Not doors that go this.
That's what I was thinking about. And
Appreciation.
he swooped in and bought this from Ralph Lauren. Ralph Lauren was about to get it. And Elon beat him out.
Look at that. Isn't that hysterical?
And then the funny thing about this car is that, most people would only take this out for...
It's $1 million car.
Right.
You don't want to wrap it around a pole.
So Elon would just park it on the street. There'd be bird poop all over it. And he'd take it to the Safeway to get groceries.
Oh, no. That is hysterical. Well, there's an early picture. Now, this is well before any of this
before
stuff.
PayPal. So, well, he takes, he makes the money off of Zip2. He puts the $1 million into the car. I love this. They take him to like an ATM machine.
Starting an internet bank.
He puts the $1 million into the car. He gets like a slightly nicer apartment. But then, see, this is where Elon's kind of different than the rest of the guys. He sinks all the rest of the money into X.com, which becomes PayPal.
So you focus on the McLaren, but really that was just his like little payoff.
A little bit.
And he took the 90% of the money and put it into X.com. It was called.
It was called X.com. Peter Thiel and Max Levchin and David Sachs had a rival company called Confinity.
Right.
And essentially, they're kind of beating each other into the ground and decide to form PayPal.
So it wasn't really, I mean, it was a bank originally, but the idea ended up being about payments, online payments.
Well, Elon's vision was huge, of course. So yeah, X.com was supposed to be mutual funds, credit card. It was supposed to be your everything for finance.
Yeah.
Whereas Confinity had started out as this payment system for Palm Pilots to sort of pay from. But then they came up with PayPal.
That's not exactly thinking huge.
No, but they did well. They came up with this button PayPal on eBay for auctions, and that became a hit. And but because Elon puts all of his money into the company, he ends up as the largest shareholder in PayPal, which is really what ends up making him filthy rich.
He had about a little more than 10% of it. They sell PayPal to eBay for $1.5 billion.
Elon comes out with about $220 million from that. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, and how old is he now? He's about 30, 31.
Yeah, just about.
And I presume he's got a better jacket by now. This is it's such an amazing story, and we haven't even really gotten to the good part.
Right. Yeah.
That's what's amazing about this. This is
the appetizer.
Yeah, the prelude. We're talking to Ashlee Vance. If you want to know all about it, this is a great book, and I think it couldn't be. By the way, he did wreck that McLaren, didn't he?
He does. Yeah, on Sand Hill Road, going to see a VC.
OMG, this is the book, and you got to read it, because what a story. And I think really we're living in an interesting time where there's people like this. That's why the Tesla thing kind of made me think about this, is that when I was thinking Nikolai instead of the car, is that these are the guys, this is a guy who we'll look back on and say, this guy changed the world. This guy is, and he wasn't a robber baron. He wasn't, Rockefeller.
Right.
But I think you're going to say, we'll see, of course, the story's not over yet, that this is one of the guys who changed the world. We'll have more with Ashlee and the story of Elon Musk in just a little bit. I want to welcome a new advertiser to our show, Credit Karma. You know, I found out about Credit Karma because you told me. Well, I don't know about you, but you. People were saying in the chat room, people were asking, well, where do I go to find out what my credit score is, how I'm, and people in the chat room said, you got to do Credit Karma. It is awesome. You may not know it, but there is a more important number in your life than your age or your IQ, a number that has a huge impact on your finances, on what you'll be paying for credit card interest, for home loans, for auto loans. It's your credit score. You got to know it. And understanding your credit is the first step towards really building a good financial future. Credit Karma gives you free credit scores that are truly free, by the way. This isn't, one of those things where you go there and it ends up costing money. No, this is free. You get free credit scores, free reports, free monitoring, and handy financial tools to help you make sense of your credit. When I signed up, because of you, the chat room, first thing I saw is that I was getting a ding on my credit score for a credit card I didn't even remember having. And I immediately cleared that, because it's like, but that was like knocking me down for no good reason. You can get the free Credit Karma app right now. Just text TWIT to 89800. TWIT 89800. Text that. That way you get it on your phone right away. It's easy. You get suggestions to help you manage and monitor your credit and be alerted when your credit score changes. I have to say, there's no reason not to have this and to keep up with all of this. It's very simple to set up. You don't have to give them a lot of information. You don't even have to give them your social. It's really well done. Credit score He is so important. You need to know what it is, and you need to keep an eye on it. Keep to monitor it. CreditKarma.com. C-R-E-D-I-T. Credit, K-A-R-M-A.com. Manage and monitor your credit absolutely free. And you don't need a credit card. You don't need anything because it's free. To get that free app, text TWIT to 89800. Tell your friends and family, too. Everybody ought to have Credit Karma. CreditKarma.com. Do it today. And that's TWIT to 89800. It's such a fascinating subject. We're talking about Elon Musk with the guy who wrote the book. Have there been other books on Elon? I mean, this is the book.
Yeah, there's like ebooks kind of on. There's nobody that's gone out to interview people.
You spent the time, 200 people, including Elon Musk. Ashlee Vance is here. The book is Elon Musk, Tesla, SpaceX, and the Quest for a Fantastic Future. All right, we've got him to 100 millionaire now, 30 years old.
Yeah.
He's obviously got an entrepreneurial mind. He's smart, right? What are his skills? What is it that you think made him, even at this point, unique?
He was a precocious kid. He's super bright, and then he has, he's got this. People say he's a photographic memory, but I don't think that's quite right. I don't think if he looked at written words on a page, he would remember everything. But he has this. He described it to me as like instead of a CPU. He has this huge GPU in his head, and he
synthesizes.
He sees and he sees images like vividly, and he never.
So he thinks visually.
Yeah, he doesn't take notes. Like the Hyperloop we can go into later, but it's not something that he like mapped out on a piece of paper.
He thought about it.
Comes to him in his head, and
they said Einstein did that too.
And I sort of wanted initially to call BS on all of these kind of stories because it just sounded too good to be true. But then, like I would run into aerospace engineers from SpaceX who, even ones who had left and weren't all that fond of Elon, and they would say, look, he would do weird things in a meeting where, you would want to know sort of how the satellite was going to interact with this other thing, and Elon would just sort of intuit it, and it was strange. And so, and then he's very, not only is he smart though, I mean, probably his biggest attribute is that he's relentless and works hours beyond what anyone else does.
I mean, at this point, he's got $220 million. What is his aspiration now? What is he?
At that point in his life? Well, so it's hilarious. I mean, he's basically, well, first, before he got rich, he got thrown out of PayPal. There was a coup, more or less. And so he's kind of licking his wounds. I mean, here's a guy who thinks very highly of himself, and he's really been kicked to the curb. I mean, they keep him on as kind of an advisor, and he's the major shareholder in the company, but he was told,
don't come to work.
Yeah. And so that was a blow. And so he does what most of the guys don't do. He decamps to Los Angeles instead of staying in Silicon Valley. He goes to visit the NASA website, and he's like, he's always been into space. He's kind of like, what are we doing on Mars? Let's see what our plans are for Mars. And he's kind of horrified that he finds
there's not
there's
really
nothing.
there. Yeah.
And at best, we're sending up probes and things, but there's no, we're going to explore, we're going to colonize. Even if like we had limitless money and we could colonize, here's our plan, nothing like that. And so he says, I want to inspire mankind again. I just have all this money. I want to do a grand gesture to make people think about space, exploration, and Mars, and get excited. And he decides he's going to send mice to Mars. That's his first plan. Then he decides, okay, that's probably not that great. They might come back dead. Or
they will definitely come back dead.
And I'm going to send a plant to Mars, and they were going to build this. They were going to build this container that had you could see through it, and it would make oxygen on Mars, and we would get like a video feed of this. And they had all these kits they were going to send to school children so that you could grow your plant alongside the Martian plant and sort of live through this. And so
but he's not doing this to make money at this point.
No. I mean, this is purely this gesture. Then he decides, okay, how can I kind of do this on the budget? I'm rich, but I'm not gonna start.
This turns out to be an expensive thing to do.
Right.
You think a McLaren is expensive? You gotta buy a rocket.
Well, and the only people you could buy a rocket from on the open market are the Russians. And he goes to Russia. These are some of my favorite stories in the book. I mean, he goes to Russia. He's having these deals. They do not take him seriously at all. They think he's just some .com millionaire who's they're trying to take him for as much money as they can. And he comes back.
They're actually trying to buy ICBMs. missiles.
They have to buy a refurbished ICBM. Yeah, and then he
not for a bomb, but because that's the rockets. That's what's for sale.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically.
And they're not cheap. They're like $8 million.
Right, and then and he decides it's too expensive, and then he says. He's been having these salons with space experts, and they've got him, like, his ambition is growing and growing and growing, and you can see it, and he says, all right, I'll just build my own rockets.
Salons. All right, I'm going to build my own. These Russians, too expensive.
Yeah, I'm going to do it myself.
But at this point, okay, it's kind of, even with $220 million, is he going to go out and raise money? How's he going to do this?
No, I think he grossly underestimates, He says this, too, in the book. He kind of cops to it. I mean, he'd come from the software world. I think he grossly underestimated how long and hard hardware is. Originally, though, they thought they would mostly be kind of an integrator. They would just be way cheaper than the government integrators. So they wanted to be the Southwest of space. There's this great PowerPoint deck that I found, and that's like slide number 2.
Oh, how fun. The Southwest of space.
Yeah, and so, the government contractors were all larding on these tons of extra costs. They thought they could undercut them. But then what he discovers as he goes along is that all the suppliers, everyone in the whole chain is way more expensive than he wants them to be. So he keeps being like, well, now we're going to build the engine. Now we're going to build the rocket bike. Now
building the whole damn thing.
Yeah. And then today, SpaceX builds 90% of the rocket in their factory in Los Angeles.
Wow. But is it a business at this point, or is it still, kind of a charity or altruistic?
Like, once he decides to start building the rockets, it shifts.
Because he can sell them to NASA, right?
It shifts from being this grand gesture to being a business. And
he gets his first NASA contract in a few years.
He does. They sort of started out with a business plan that didn't really work in the end, which was to build. It was called the Falcon 1. It's smaller than the rocket they fly today, and the idea was that there was this whole market that was being underserved, which was scientists, research bodies, people that could afford like $10 million to go to space and see what happens instead of 60, 100, 200.
But also NASA sees the end of the space shuttle program coming.
Well, this is what as SpaceX is doing the Falcon 1 and sort of catering to this low end of the market, the end of the space shuttle's coming.
Yeah, space tourism is never going to be a big business.
Right, and Elon knows that that's where they could get some serious money, and so they come up with first the Falcon 5 and then the Falcon 9, these bigger rockets that could resupply the ISS.
Because they've needed to service the International Space Station.
Yeah, and it becomes,
and they've been doing that.
And they get multi-billion-dollar contracts that keep the company going, and then it's been a good deal for the taxpayer. They do it way cheaper than anybody else.
It's almost as if he stumbled into a business there. It was something like he dreamed of doing, and then it turned out, well, you can make a little money at this. Like billions of dollars.
Yeah, when they first started out, I think it was June of 2002, and those same PowerPoint decks that I was talking about, it says, by the end of 2004, we will be flying our rocket, and it does not pan out that way.
Okay, these things take time. He also says we're going to have a Mars colony by 2040, so...
He in the last interview I had with him, he's saying like 2026 to at least start the flights.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but it tends to run a little late.
So, you mentioned they went broke at some point. What happened? When did that happen?
Right. It's kind of in 2008. It's the middle chapter of the book, and that's like the personal and business crisis all happening at the same time. SpaceX is doing well in some sense. They've had a successful flight. Their problem is they need money to keep developing all the stuff they've promised. So they sort of have commercial prospects, but need money. Tesla is more of a dodgy story. They're trying to get the Roadster, their first car.
So he's already started. When did he start Tesla?
Tesla started in 2003.
Okay. So almost in parallel.
Almost at the same time, right?
And what was he trying to do with Tesla? This was electric cars at first.
Yeah, he'd always been into electric cars, and I think SpaceX is like his real calling. Getting to Mars is his life's dream, but he'd been thinking about electric cars for a long time. This business plan basically came along his desk. Nobody else would fund it. He's like, let's go do this.
Interesting.
And so we'll do this too. And then so Tesla has a really tough road. The Roadster is very difficult to produce. It's expensive. Everything's going wrong. Tesla is like on the verge of bankruptcy every day during 2008.
Yeah, Jason Calacanis told this story on Twitter a couple of weeks back. Elon's wife's leaving him.
Well, then they're getting divorced, and she's blogging about it. Yeah.
He's like losing his shirt.
Yeah.
And Tesla's not flying. So Jason says, I wrote a check for the first Tesla. I said, I'll buy it.
He goes to all his friends. Sergey Brin does something similar. This guy Bill Lee, who's a good friend.
They believe in Elon,
right?
And they say, even though I'm maybe throwing my money away here, because was it 50 grand? What was it?
For the car?
Yeah.
Back then, it was about 100, 120. Yeah.
So you write a check for $100,000 on something that you may never get.
Well, and in the big picture, look, this is 2008. I mean, it's the recession. All the car companies are going belly up. And this is an electric car company that makes like a niche, rich person's car.
People believe in Elon,
yeah,
right?
I mean, that's what's insane. Not only do those people believe in him, but when you get to the very end of 2008, so all this crisis is all coming to a head. The companies, neither one can really make payroll by the end of December. Elon's personal life is in shambles. He's having like nightmares and all this stuff. And he more or less like bluffs the Tesla investors, because there's a group of the investors who are totally trying to take the company over from him and sell it off for parts to Detroit. The other ones believe in him.
And by the way, Detroit has no interest in electric vehicles.
Right, yeah. I mean it would, and then
it would be pennies on the dollar.
Yeah. And the other half of the investors believe in Elon, but it's very hard for them to justify going back and saying, let's sink more money into this company. So Elon bluffs them. He raises some money. He's been borrowing money, but he raises some. And he goes to the investors and he says, look, I'm going to fund the entire next round myself. If you guys don't want in, that's fine. I'm just going to
I'll keep all the money.
Get a huge percentage of this company.
Yep.
And it totally works. The greed, they all get greedy, and they go from going to completely pass on this deal to them being like, look, I don't want to be the one who's left out of this thing. They make their round. Tesla gets enough money to go see the Roadster through, and then this is all around Christmas Eve, and then NASA SpaceX really was kind of the underdog, gets this like $1.6 billion contract for the ISS. This happens in the span of about 2 days.
Holy cow.
Elon's companies are both saved, and the rest is sort of history. I mean, things, especially for Tesla, remain difficult, but never sort of at this kind of total life or death situation.
Holy cow. What was it that got him through that?
If you talk to anyone who knows Elon, they will tell you he's got this insane resolve, this will. I mean, there's a guy in there who knows Elon really well, Antonio Gracias. He's on the board of Tesla and SpaceX and sort of lived through this. It's one of my favorite quotes in the book. He says, when everybody else is under pressure like this, they crumble, and Elon gets hyper rational. And it's just sort of, what is the one thing I need to do to make, what gives me the best chance of this company surviving in this moment? And he just sort of, he's being overwhelmed by the situation like any of us would be by the emotion of it, but in the decision making, he doesn't, like when that one investor is pressuring him and trying to take the company, he doesn't buckle to that. He's like, he stands up and he's like, no, and he goes, how can I route around this guy?
Wow.
He's very systematic and logical, and he seems able to hold on to that while things are crumbling around him.
Normally you'd think in a situation like this, he's a great salesman.
Well, there's, the bluffing part that we talked about too, right? I mean, Elon, definitely when you see him present, he's not Steve Jobs. I've honed this, but
the Powerwall thing was really interesting because it wasn't. In fact, the charm of it was that it wasn't polished. It felt like he was just talking to you.
Yeah.
And in fact, that worked better than some razzle-dazzle sales pitch.
It has this genuine feel for it.
It feels genuine.
Because this is kind of how this guy is, and then he hasn't sat back there polishing his BS for a week. It's just kind of what he's coming up with off the top of his head. And then in these other moments, we've seen where he's able to get tons of money out of states, and he seems to.
He must have some sales skills.
Right. He doesn't have this Steve Jobs razzle-dazzle, but he's got sort of. He's very quick on his feet, and I think he makes people feel like buying into him is the right decision.
We're talking to Ashlee Vance, his new book, which you've got to get. You can listen on Audible.
Yeah.
And who does the? Did you do the reading?
No, this actor, Fred Sanders, and he's getting as good reviews as the book. So he swears, he puts on a South African accent for Elon and everything.
Oh, I'm going to have to listen to it then. But you can also buy it in hardcover. You can get it from Ashlee's own website, Ashlee, A-S-H-L-E-E, Vance.com. And it's available at all the bookstores and stuff. Elon Musk, Tesla, SpaceX, and the quest for a fantastic future. One more segment to come. I want to talk about a Powerwall and a few other things. I mean, just a fascinating guy. An amazing guy. And that Elon Musk is pretty interesting, too. Our show today brought to you by Personal Capital. This is kind of a funny story because Bill Harris, who started Personal Capital, was one of the founders, worked with Elon, was a partner with Elon in PayPal, and does tell the story of how hard it was to have those four massive, Peter Thiel and him and Elon in the room at the same time. He said it was difficult, to say the least. But to Bill's credit, he did well with PayPal. He was the CEO of Intuit, and could have taken the rest of his life off on the beach. Instead, he said, there's something that needs to be done, and it's personal capital. People are not paying attention to their investments. They're putting money aside, one hopes, for retirement, for a rainy day. But then they just kind of let it go. There's one of two ways people go. Either they go out and they get a high-priced, basically salesman, a broker, to advise them. And the problem with that is the broker doesn't make money from you. The broker makes money from you trading, buying stocks, commission. He's not working in your best interest. Or, and a lot of us geeks do this, we put it away, we get an online brokerage, and then we just forget about it. Personal Capital really solves this problem in two ways. First of all, if you go to personalcapital.com/triangulation, absolutely free, you can put your financial data in there, and the dashboards, the information on your iPad, your desktop, your Android device, they even have Apple Watch apps and Android Wear apps, will keep you up on what's going on painlessly and effortlessly so you know what's going on with your money. So information is power. At the very least, you got to do that. And that is totally free, free forever. If you decide you want financial advice, they do that, but it's not from a stockbroker or somebody who works on commission. It's from an SEC-registered financial advisor, somebody with a fiduciary responsibility, a legal responsibility to look out for your best interest. No commission. You pay a fee, but you don't even have to pay a fee if you track $100,000 or more in assets on the dashboard. And that, by the way, is not so hard to do. You have more than you think. As soon as you put it down, you start to realize, oh, yeah. They will give you a free 30-minute review with one of their financial advisors. You could talk about your goals, your time horizon, your risk tolerance. Think of it as a financial checkup. It's absolutely free. All you have to do is track $100,000 or more on the dashboard. I cannot tell you how valuable this is. And just so you understand, it's a freemium to play because all of that is free, and what they're, if you wish, you can also invest with them. You can set up an investment account. They'll give you that great advice, that commission-free advice, and you pay an advisor to do that and all that. So you can always do that. That's, they said about 5–10% of the customers end up doing that. That's how they pay for the service. But really, the rest is absolutely free and free forever, and a great deal. No wonder they're now tracking over $150 billion in personal finances. For people just like you and me. I've been using it for a couple of years, and I love it. Personalcapital.com/triangulation. It's just a really good idea. Personalcapital.com/triangulation. I've been using it, and I recommend it highly. Ashlee Vance is here. He's a writer for Bloomberg Businessweek. You might remember him from the New York Times. He is the author of a new book, which I think you're getting a sense of how interesting this subject matter is. Just fascinating. Elon Musk, Tesla, SpaceX, and the quest for a fantastic future. Lots of ups and downs, but Elon's made it now, right? Tesla's profitable. It's doing okay.
Some quarters, yeah.
Every once in a while.
Yeah.
He only makes $1 at Tesla, right? His salary?
Yeah, He does have about money,
a third of an $18 billion
all his money is invested in his companies to his credit or detriment.
Does he live high on the hog?
He does. He's on paper, he's very tied into Solar City, SpaceX, and Tesla, where he owns these huge.
How did he get in
chunks.
Solar City? Was that his brother's company?
His cousins, the ones that he grew up with in South Africa, and Elon basically brainstormed the idea for the company with them, and then Elon ended up at one point he owned about a third of the company. And
that's a good tie into Tesla because he's making this Powerwall battery. Yeah. Solar City, I presume, will be one of the installers that will use this.
They are. Yeah.
Is this so? He wants to go to Mars. He's building an electric car.
Yeah.
Is he motivated by profit? Is he motivated to save the world?
People wonder this about Elon. Look, and I don't want this to sound like a fanboy thing either. This guy obviously likes having money. It helps him do what he wants to do. If money was his motivation, I just don't. He's a guy.
Got to be more than that.
Yeah, he's a guy who seems like he expects money to sort of be there for him. And this
but what he really has
out.
is this large, really enormous vision.
Unless he's lying to himself and his family and his friends, his #1 goal is to start a colony on Mars, and because he wants an exit plan for humans.
Does he want to go there?
He does.
Because he wouldn't probably come back.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
it's a one-way trip.
So he said, he says he doesn't care if he's the first man on Mars, although his wife told me he does want to be the first man on Mars.
You're kidding. Oh, my God.
But he told me, he said he wouldn't go to Mars unless he knew that SpaceX was in good hands and that the colony, that somebody else would see through.
He can't run SpaceX from Mars.
Right. So he would want, and something might go wrong. He would want to know for sure that somebody would see his vision.
Does he have
through.
kids?
He's got 5 boys, but he said, he tells me in the book that, if it came to it, he would go to Mars on his own. And
you know what? If you want a pal, I'll go with you. Seriously, who wouldn't want to be? Who wouldn't want to go, even if you're never getting back?
One of my favorite parts while we were talking too is that it's just so much grander than stuff I think about. I guess every now and then, Mars and the Earth are sort of at their closest point together, and I guess I just hadn't I hadn't thought about this really in detail before, and so it's like, well, how would this sort of work, starting a colony on Mars? And he says these things so matter-of-factly. It's like, well, I mean, when they're the closest, you have this month period of time where you'd want to do as many launches as possible. And I was like, oh, like 1 a day or 1 a week, or so. He's like, no, you would be doing hundreds or thousands of launches per day for a month, and each one has to take this many tons of cargo, and this is how many tons we would need to be.
He's figured it all out.
He's like all there, and then
he probably knows to the penny what it would cost.
And if you know anything about, he does, and if you know anything about the launch industry today, it's like the best launch companies, SpaceX and Arianespace. They
reliable.
do one a month. One a month is like sort of the
thousands a day.
Yeah.
But I gotta feel like that if it's not in his office, in his mind, he has a thermometer. Those old thermometers as they're fundraising, as he gets closer and closer to this goal, he can see exactly where they stand.
And SpaceX is kind of encouraging, because when they first used to quote the prices, just like even for their regular business, everyone thought they were nuts, and they've lived up to it, and they've gotten actually better. And so who knows?
People often compare him to Tony Stark, Iron Man.
Right.
And I know what the comparison is. Not, they're not doing the same thing. It's that willingness and ability to think big and make it happen. To think really, really big. In ways that you and I just don't.
Think big, talk big, act big.
And do it.
But deliver on some of it. Right. If anyone else, even when he came out with the Hyperloop, you definitely had a camp of people that were like, this is nuts.
I still think that's nuts.
But half the people are kind of like, well, if Elon said it, maybe.
So what is the Hyperloop?
I mean, it's just glorified monorail. In a lot of ways, it just goes so much faster, 800 miles per hour in a kind of elevated tube with not a complete vacuum. You've got a pod on an air rail. And Elon, he never really intended to commercialize this. I mean, I broke the story on it. I remember talking to him about it in the early days. He said, I'm not going to make this. I just want to put this idea out there. He
always said that. He never said, this is not our company, this is not for us, but this is the idea.
And he saw the California high-speed rail coming, and he thinks it's
terrible
expensive and slow and horrible. And so he basically wanted to put something else out there to kind of make people question the high-speed rail. And then, since then, I mean, Elon is going to build a test track in Texas where other people can come try their ideas.
Jason Calacanis has talked about this. He's put some money up. Jason's an investor
There's
in that
a couple
track.
startups, and there's a couple startups who are also developing the technology.
And Jason said something I thought interesting, because at first the thought was a San Francisco to L.A. train. But Jason said, what really is going to be where it's really valuable is in transport cargo under the Pacific. From Asia to the United States. There's no humans at all. So if it leaks, if it blows up, no big deal.
That would take a lot of the risk out. And then on the human side, one of the startups is trying to do Vegas to LA in 15 minutes. So you can go from LA,
not a bad idea.
Go gamble and come back and sleep in your bed.
The money is there.
Yeah.
It's just I'm glad we live in a time where people like Elon Musk exist.
It's fun.
I feel like he's doing good stuff for, some of the criticism, he does get criticism. Some of the criticism is the government subsidies of both Tesla and Solar City, right?
You've got that. He's a very tough guy to work for. He's not always the nicest guy.
Well, neither was Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've kind of gotten used to the idea that being nice maybe isn't the only metric of whether somebody's a valuable human being.
I mean, this guy is on he's got a lot to do in a one lifetime. So
Does he feel that way? Does he feel like I've got one life to live? I'm going to make the most of it. I mean, is that?
Yeah, I think so. I think we talked about he would like to know that the colony is going to happen. I think in an ideal world, he would love to go and retire to die on Mars, knowing on a colony. That to make that happen, there's a lot that needs to get done between now and then. So he's on a fixed time.
Best picture I've ever seen of Elon Musk is in your book. It's from Shervin Pishovar took it.
Oh God,
of Elon and Sean Penn in Cuba in 2013 driving. I don't know, a classical. Can you see this? You'd zoom in on that.
They've all got cigars.
They're all smoking cigars. There's Elon. There's Sean Penn.
So apparently
Shervin.
They just talked some guy out of that car. They all jumped in and just started driving.
Just love that picture. That tells you a little bit something. And by the way, the next Tesla, it's going to have doors that go like this.
Right, yeah. Absolutely.
Not doors that go like this. Doors that go like this.
Well, then you don't even have to be in the billionaire club. You can be in the 100,000.
I can have two commas. I'm probably going to buy one of those. I just think it's the coolest thing ever, the Model X SUV. I feel like, wow, just amazing. By the way, I don't know how you got this. You got this from the Freedom of Information Act, Elon's travels.
Right, yeah.
This is an infographic.
I could just put in a request and got all of his private plane logs.
Wow.
So he flies about, I think it's 180 times per year, and he splits his time between LA and Silicon Valley every week.
You can see why he wants a Hyperloop.
Right. He goes sort of half a week in LA.
South by Southwest, probably. You're just trying to guess. Cuba, what the heck? This is a great infographic. Hey, you got to get the book. Ashlee Vance wrote it. It's called Elon Musk, Tesla, SpaceX, and the Quest for a Fantastic Future by the modern Iron Man. I mean, I just find it so fascinating what he's up to, and what a great read. I really appreciate you taking some time, Ashlee,
Thank you for
to
your
tell us a
time.
little bit about it. Good luck with the book. Congratulations on
Thank
its
you. I really appreciate
success.
it. Thank you.
We do Triangulation every Tuesday. Normally it's at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 1800 UTC. If you like to watch live, I'd like to hear from you in the chat room as we're doing the show. But if you can't, don't worry. On-demand audio and video of all of our shows is at the website, twit.tv/TRI, or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you subscribe. That way you won't miss an episode. It's always, I'm telling you, it's always great. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Triangulation. Bye-bye.